This is a controlled environment. This is an uncontrolled environment. Now, there are a lot of similarities and there's a lot of differences between shooting in a controlled environment and shooting in an uncontrolled environment. So right now, I'm gonna go over some things about shooting in a controlled environment, all right? Shooting in a controlled environment basically means that there's not a lot of distractions with you shooting a model or your clients or whatever the case may be. It's a controlled environment, which means the lighting is more controlled, the environment, the ambient, all of that stuff is controlled. For me personally, shooting in a studio, I like shooting in the studio, but I've noticed over my time and my years of shooting that shooting in a controlled environment, the real only challenge is your creativity. The only thing that really is going to stop you or really challenge you when you're shooting in a controlled environment is yourself, is the way you think, it's your creativity. That's the only thing that challenges you in a controlled environment, like in the studio. Your creativity, how well you can construct or come up with things in order to get the shot. That's why in a studio setting, you see a lot of photographers either using spots or color or 1 or 2 light or even 3 light setups. Whatever they have to do to try to create an image. They might bring in some fake bushes or some fake sand or, change up the background a little bit. When you're shooting in a controlled environment, the only challenge is your own level of creativity, how well you can think outside the box, whatever you can come up with in order to get that shot, to make it something like, what am I gonna do today? I wanna do a studio shoot today. What can I do to really enhance this image, And that's the biggest thing about shooting in a controlled environment. Is not, I'm not gonna say it's not a lot to it, but I'm talking about challenges, advantages and disadvantages versus control versus uncontrolled. So a few advantages of shooting in a controlled environment. Number one is that you really don't have to battle light. You really don't have to battle lighting. I can literally come in my studio, set all my lights up to exactly where I want it to, set my f-stop and my ISO and my shutter, set all that stuff up and put it up. And then a month from now, I can come back in here with those same settings and take the shot and it is gonna look the exact same. Because it's a controlled environment. You can set everything up, leave out, come back, it's still gonna be the same. That's a controlled environment. So that's an advantage, not really having to battle lighting, not really having to battle anything. The second advantage is, you're in basically a secluded area to basically feel free to create what you want. You don't have a lot of people coming through and, you don't have a lot of people looking at you and being nervous and trying to see if you can or cannot shoot there. So, being in a secluded space all the time is a pretty big advantage of being in a controlled environment. Like I said, the biggest things about, the biggest advantages is just, being able to sit and create and think and just do it however you want to, Those are a lot of advantages of being in a controlled environment. Now, what are some disadvantages of being in a controlled environment? Well, your creativity. The biggest disadvantage about being in a controlled environment is your creativity, how you shoot, what you can come up with, what you can explore. Should you use 1, 2, 3 lights? Should you use a different backdrop? Should you use a rim light? Should you make a halo? Should I use a spot? Should I use color? All of those things they can be advantages, but I think, again, that can also be a disadvantage You know, because a lot of people and a lot of photographers can't really think outside the box like that and trying to think about what can I do different today? What can I, how can I use this lighting, or how can I use that lighting? What beauty dish, what softbox, what rim light, what strip box? A lot of those things, a lot of people can't really think outside like that. So it becomes a disadvantage if you don't have a certain level of creativity in your bag in order to shoot in the studio basically all the time. So for me, in a studio, I like shooting in the studio because I like the versatility. Me as a photographer, one of the biggest things that I pride myself on is being a very versatile photographer, whether I'm shooting in the studio, shooting with different lights and spots and things, versus also shooting outside. So it's good to have it when you need it, client work, headshots, family photos. You want to be able to go out there and get it. You don't want to be one of those photographers who sit around and you get a call from a client and they say, hey, I want to do, some client work, or I want to do some headshots, or, something for my business, some real estate shots, or, I want some family photos, or things like that. The last thing I'm gonna say, well, I can't do that. First of all, I don't know how to shoot in the studio. Second of all, I don't have a studio to shoot in. And let me tell you, shooting in the studio is different from shooting outside on location. But you have to be able to gain that experience, and you have to be able to do it. If you have a garage or a space in your home or something where you can shoot or turn it into a studio, I highly recommend you do it. My garage, I turned into a fully functional studio. Regardless if it's a garage or a basement or not, you don't think about what people say or care. There's no difference between me coming here or me going to a studio and renting somebody else's studio, unless I'm trying to get a really big white infinity wall. But now Photoshop is so good with AI, I can turn this wall into an infinity wall. So I literally don't have to go nowhere. So for anybody who says, oh, you shouldn't shoot in there or you shouldn't do, hey, it's very, very easy to turn any location or something in your house, or if you have the space, turn it into a studio, man. Make it a studio. It ain't gonna do nothing but make you more money. The last thing I'm gonna do is give somebody else that money. No, I can't do it, man, but my buddy over there can do it. What do I look like passing off money to somebody else because I don't have the skill set or the location or something to do it? I've never in my career, unless it was early, I've never in my career as a photographer had to pass off work to somebody else because I couldn't do it. Unless I was deployed or military obligations or something like that, and I literally couldn't do it. But I never had to pass off work because I did not have the skill set or the know-how to do it. Because I've always prided myself on knowing almost every area of photography in order to shoot it, create it, and deal with it, whether it be on location or in the studio. It taught me a lot from shooting in the studio. It taught me a lot about control, stopping down my aperture, really bringing things in focus, and how to use light to curve and shape exactly what I wanted to do. But it has its advantages, man. You can use wind and blowing and all the wind machines and so many things that I have in this studio, reflectors, V-flats, trapping light, bouncing light. There's so much to it. And there's so much to learn. We never really stop learning as photographers. But being in the studio didn't teach me everything. Actually, I learned more about being a photographer shooting on location than I did shooting in a studio. So with that being said, let's check out on location. All right, there we go. This is an uncontrolled environment. So we are just sitting here in my backyard, and guess what? It's sprinkling, kind of raining and everything, but this is an example of an uncontrolled environment. I believe over my course of being a photographer, this type of environment has really taught me a lot about what it is to be a photographer. There's a lot of advantages shooting on location. There's a lot of disadvantages about shooting on location. So first of all, let's talk about some disadvantages about shooting on location. There's so many, all right? Because you never know what the weather's gonna be like. You see how it's raining? It's literally raining and sprinkling right now. You can't control the environment. You can't control the sun. You can't control the amount of light that you may or may not get on a particular day. You can't control the people who are walking past and everything. You can't control the location. Nothing is in your control, i.e., that's why it's called an uncontrolled environment. You don't control anything. That a lot of times really pushes you, and it really allows you to really think about how to get the shot. It really tests you to know if you really know your equipment, if you really know about lighting, if you really know about flash. There are so many factors that go into shooting on location, but these are the same factors, these are the same disadvantages that you can actually turn into amazing advantages. First of all, because you have to know your equipment. It's not like being in a studio. You can't just set up your equipment to a certain f-stop, shutter speed and aperture and just sit it down and then come back a month later and know those are the same settings that you can use. You can't use the same flash power every day. That's not how, you can't do that. That's not what, it really tests you to understand your equipment, to understand lighting, to understand what direction I need to pose my model. It really tests you when it comes to distractions. You know, is there a pole in the back of her head? Is there a building? Is it going to add to the shot? Is it going to take away from the shot? When you think about composition, posing, lighting, camera technique, skill, you get all of those things when you really learn how to shoot on location. When you're shooting on a day like this, if the sky is blown out, how do you shoot? Where do I shoot her at? You know, there's just so many things, and I'm not saying that being an on-location photographer is better than being a studio photographer, because they both have their advantages and their disadvantages. But again, in the studio, my only challenge or my only downfall is just my creativity. It's not my camera, it's not my equipment really. I can set everything up once and I know that those settings are gonna be good for the next shot, and the next shot, and the next shot. I know the distance from my backdrop to where my camera's at. I know it's gonna be good because I've shot in that same area. I know the ambient light. I know how many lights are on my ceiling. I know how much ambient is in my garage. It doesn't change, you know? So if it's always like that, that can be an advantage because you don't have to take as much time to set up. The setup is quicker. You know, everything is right there. But the disadvantages is, I don't really think being a studio photographer challenges you more than being a on-location photographer. And a lot of people ask me, what do I like doing most? Do I like shooting on location more, or do I like shooting in the studio more? I like both. But how did I learn really lighting, posing? How did I learn composition? How did I learn about distractions? How did I learn about so much? It was coming out, for the last over a decade, it's been coming outside, shooting during the sunrise, shooting when the sky is at its highest, shooting in flat out sun beaming shots. It's been shooting during golden hour, shooting during blue hour, shooting at nighttime, in all different types of environments, all different types of weather. Cold, hot, sleet. Shooting in the snow. You don't get that stuff when you are a studio photographer. So I highly encourage anybody who is a photographer, if you really want to be challenged, I have to go out to a lot of photographers who are versatile photographers. I think I have to break down some of these subjects for you. When I say you learn about lighting, you have to, when it comes to lighting, You have to be able to combine it with the ambient, and you learn a lot about that. You can't learn that in the studio, but outside on location, if the sun is really high, you have to learn to balance your flash with the ambient in order to make it look like you're using flash instead of using the sun. You learn a lot about that stuff when it comes to lighting when you're on location, how to balance your flash with the ambient. That's the first thing. Posing. On location, you really learn a lot about posing because you have to learn how to pose your model, whether her back is to the sun or you're using the sun as your main light, or if you're using flash, you have to learn how to light your subject, but also pose your model in a way that they're going to get that rim light probably from the sun or from your main light. But posing is really big when you're on location. Let's talk about location. Location is crazy when you're on location, photographer, because the world becomes your canvas, whether it be in the alley, whether it be in a hotel, or wherever you're shooting at. Everything becomes your canvas. Everything is a shot. The location, the backdrop is already there. I don't have to do nothing. The backdrop is already there, and then my models can also use those backdrops to their ability to create poses. And I love that. See, in the studio, it's all about what you give them. But see, outside, I can use a bike, I can use stairs, I can use fences, I can use anything that I want to try to create a pose. Distractions. Man, you know how much I learned about distractions as an on-location photographer? Because some distractions are good for a shot. I didn't know that there was a thing, the difference between bad distractions and good distractions. See, a bad distraction is something where I'm taking a picture and there's pose and stuff coming out my model's head, and I'm not really paying attention to the shot. I'm just looking at her, I'm getting distracted, and I'm just like, that's a good shot. And then when I get back into my studio and look at the images, I got these pose and stuff, fences, like it just doesn't look good. So being on location allowed me to slow down and really understand my composition. It allowed me to check to make sure that my model was free of debris and distraction and things like that, to make sure I get a good clean image. So now I've learned to slow down. See, you don't learn that in the studio. I'm sorry, you don't learn that in the studio. You don't learn that until you come on location. You're doing it day in and day out. But there are some things that are good distractions. If my model is dressed a certain way and I want to use a certain building or I want to use a certain backdrop, it might be a distraction, but it's adding to the image. It's adding to the overall composition of the shot. She might pose with a stick in her hand. She might pose with a rope. They might be small distractions, but they also add aesthetic to the shot. But you would know that if you're not on location. And that's what I'm talking about. So being on location has a lot of advantages. And most of those advantages are actually teachings and grooming you as a great photographer. I don't feel like that overall grooming comes to you in a studio. I don't feel it does. There's way too many things, and you don't battle the ambient. When you're on location, you are battling against everything. I'm probably getting water on my lens, but that's okay. But my word to you guys today, you need to get outside. I don't mind being a studio photographer. It's great. Challenge that creativity. Think about some things that you can come up with. But until you actually get outside, until you actually shoot in different environments, until you shoot during the different times of day and really go up and down on your flash power, go up and down on your shutter speed, and you're still taking shots and you're still shooting, it's like when you get so good where you never miss a beat, even when the sun is moving up and down or moving through the clouds like this, and you're still trying to shoot, but you just never miss a beat. That's when you become a incredible advanced photographer. When you can shoot through that stuff and still get shots and never miss a beat. So, do you want to beat or never miss a beat? I think that was stupid. And I'm getting rained on. Get out of that studio and get outside and let's see what you can do. All right, that's my challenge for all you guys. I love all you guys. make sure you comment, you know what I'm saying? Make sure you comment on this video, man. Take it down. Let me know how you feel about these things, man. I want to hear from you guys. Let me know what you feel about being a studio photographer. Let me know what you feel about being an on-location photographer. Advantages, disadvantages. What is your opinion? What do you think? You tell me. All right, and make sure you guys subscribe. All right, because I did this for you guys, and I'm out here in the rain. This is for you guys. Can you at least comment? Can you at least share the video, subscribe while I'm getting rained on for you?